Hello, psychologist Yulia Latunenko is with you. And today we will explore a very interesting topic related to the classification of characters, not the psychoanalytic classification. Today we have oral trauma, or we will examine how this oral trauma influences the formation of an oral character in a person. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. Also give this video a like. This really helps my channel to grow as quickly as possible and be useful. Oral trauma is a type of trauma that affects a person's character and shapes certain oral traits in the personality's character. An oral personality is formed under the condition that attachment relationships with the mother are poorly developed, causing the child to frequently feel abandoned and neglected. The consequences of this trauma include a fear of abandonment, a tendency to cling to other people, as well as very weak self-care skills, coupled with an unwillingness to ask for help when it is desperately needed. An excessive tendency to be caring towards other people. Such a person will show the maximum of their care and love for others while forgetting to take care of themselves. Such a person does not love themselves. It's as if they are trying to love others in order to receive that same love for themselves. This is the so-called mechanism of proflection, where we do for others what we hope to receive from them. That is, if we are in great need of love, we do not ask for it. We do not talk about it. But instead, we start giving that love from a place of deficiency, hoping that people will treat us the same way. In the stories of people who have an oral character or oral trauma, there are often episodes of abandonment or improper formation of maternal attachment, or by those who care for this person. Very often the caregivers or the mother even suffer from depression or have an avoidant attachment style. That is, such mothers are not sensitive to the child's needs and often carelessly leave the child when they cry or when they want maternal warmth, or simply the child needs attention, feeding, drinking water, changing diapers. The mother turns out to be very insensitive to this, allowing the child to cry and be sad for a long time. Such mothers very often send the child early to daycare, for example, around the age of 1 or close to 1 year old. The child ends up in kindergarten. She is not ready yet. For her, the separation from the mother is a complete catastrophe. It is equivalent to death. The parents of an oral child, an oral personality, are most often themselves carriers of such a character structure. But an oral mother who, with the support of her husband or close relatives, could have enough energy to be a good mother for one child, may find herself completely helpless and ineffective in a situation where she has 3 or 2 children and lacks the support of the children's father or close relatives. The same applies to a mother who is raising a child alone, that is, a single mother. Oral trauma is associated with the trauma of abandonment and the emotional loneliness of a child during the breastfeeding period. It is during this period when the child needs closeness with the mother's breast and is still being fed with mother's milk that this disruption occurs. The child experiences the trauma of the mother's detachment, coldness, and lack of involvement. Such a mother may be overprotective, as we say, a helicopter mom. She may perform all the caregiving tasks routinely and correctly, but emotionally, because she is consumed by her anxiety or depression, she is not engaged with the child. She does not look into the child's eyes. The tone with which she communicates with the child does not match the tone that the child perceives as emotional closeness. That is, the break in emotional attachment occurs when the mother herself is immature, not ready for emotional closeness, or has a similar trauma herself. Such an attachment theory, Isaac, was developed by the very famous psychotherapist and psychologist Bowlby. He proved that when a child is emotionally and physically abandoned by the mother, the child initially protests, then the child falls into depression, becoming very sad. The child delves deeper into that depression. After this, there comes a stage when the child submits, accepts this trauma, and eventually, when the mother reappears, after the child has gone through all these 3 phases of abandonment, the child pushes the mother away. The child does not recognize the mother. The child runs away from the mother. And very slowly later, when contact with the mother is eventually reestablished, the child no longer trusts the mother. The child constantly anticipates a repetition of the abandonment experience. This is essentially the process that occurs in the life of an adult who has experienced oral trauma. Initially, the person protests when someone leaves them, then they fall into depression, and eventually they submit, and they no longer want to enter into close relationships. They fear them because they are afraid of repeating this trauma. They no longer trust people. Such trauma creates ambivalent feelings. In a child, meaning very contradictory, polar feelings. They feel both angst and love towards their mother simultaneously. Love and hatred are what accompany a person throughout their life. Love and hatred fill relationships with partners. This happens as a projection of the model that the child received at an early age, when building closeness with their mother. Thus, a person grows up and reacts emotionally to the break in emotional connection in exactly 3 phases. Initially, they fall into protest, then they fall into despair, into depression, and then they submit and detach, living in chronic despair and protest is too painful. Now we will examine together what this oral character is really like. But I remind you that it is very important for you to subscribe to my channel and like this video. And of course, write whether you have found traits of the oral character in yourself. And do you know anything that happened? What events occurred specifically at the stage when your mother was breastfeeding you? This story begins at the moment of birth. For the baby, the mother is the entire world. He does not yet know that the world consists of more than just his mother, and he might even consider that his mother's body is an extension of his own body. For the baby, the mother is truly something that is completely and totally connected with him, with his emotional world, with his physical world. But very often, paradise turns out to be lost. The mother is unavailable. She deprives the child of the necessary physical contact, emotional closeness. When the child is in great need, it is precisely at this moment that the mother turns out to be absent. You can even, by the shape of the head of an adult person identify this trauma. Very often when a mother leaves her child alone, such a child develops a certain head shape. This is very often a flattened occiput, like it's cut off. Or you see flattening on both sides when the person has a very narrow skull. And when the child lies on one side and no one turns them over, or the child is always lying in their swaddling clothes like this, with swaddled in these clothes, and no one approaches them for a long time, and the child's cartilage of the head, the bones are very soft, and the head takes the shape of this lying position and seems to look like it's chopped off, trimmed. So a flat occiput is a sign that a person experienced the trauma of abandonment in early childhood. The mother may be nearby. She might not have gone anywhere, not left, but she ignores the child's needs, or simply doesn't know how to take care of her child, or is very busy with her own affairs, relationships. Maybe she has some problems in her relationship with the father, and she is completely absorbed in these relationships. That is, she emotionally abandons her child, condemning them to feelings of abandonment and helplessness for life. This is how an oral character is formed, and we can rightfully call it a dependent character. These are codependent people. An oral or codependent character knows how to wait, how to grieve, how to fall into depression, and how to mourn, how to be in despair, for the one who will bring them love. And when they find someone, they will cling to that person with all their might, so as never to lose them again and not to feel that state, the feeling of abandonment. Such a person will do everything to never return to the feeling of abandonment, depression, and the feeling of being unwanted by anyone. Therefore, such a person, when they meet someone, projects the image of a mother onto this person, clings to them, and holds on tightly. She will push all her needs to the background. She will forget herself. She will ignore herself, trying selflessly to cater to the needs of that person, the person onto whom she has projected her mother. The oral character is essentially an undernourished, unsatisfied organism with a significant decrease in vitality. It is very difficult for him to do something on his own, because by nature he is hypotonic. His muscles are hypotonic, lacking the energy to perform any external action. But he will gather all his remaining strength to satisfy the one he clings to, the one he has attached himself to. An oral child often falls ill in childhood, and such a child has to take on responsibility for adults and those and for themselves quite early. People of this type often suffer, and they suffer seriously. But it is so difficult to help them because they exhibit passive-aggressive behavior. They do not know how to accept help. They constantly complain to other people. It seems that nothing changes in their lives. And when people try to help them, it turns out to be impossible because they seem to be stuck. They seem to be stuck in their suffering and behave essentially like small children who constantly need to be pampered, pitied, and rescued. The weak spot in the body of such people with an oral character is the lower back. They always have some kind of pain or symptom there. They also have weak legs and weak muscles. As I mentioned earlier, they are hypertonic, meaning they are very relaxed and lack the energy to tense up and take any action. The oral character has a great need for romantic relationships. They immerse themselves in those they love, hoping to find a total paradise, finding a new mother. Although it may outwardly seem that the oral character offers only care and love to their partner, in reality they desire only a total merging, which sooner or later will become very cramped and stifling for both. And now we will discuss the sexual issues of the oral character. But before that, I want to remind you that it's very important for me that you subscribe to my channel, give a like, and leave a comment. Do you recognize yourself in this description of the oral character? The sexual drive in the oral character, like other life needs, demands, and forces, is quite weak. More valuable for such a person is tactile contact, hugs, merging, both physical and emotional. And this merging is what a child wants with their mother. And of course, such merging kills the sexual drive. An oral person, due to the fear of loneliness, which is predominant, very often enters into dubious intimate relationships. The fear of such a person can be the cause of control, jealousy, anxiety, and periodic bouts of this anxiety towards their partner in response to minor signals that may remind this person of abandonment. And very often such people, interpreting certain signals as attempts to abandon them, can themselves become spiteful abandoners. To prevent and to avert this moment, and to feel abandoned, to feel that childhood helplessness, the fear of loneliness, they may leave their partners, not allowing the relationship to develop. How to heal oral trauma. Of course, this is a trauma associated with early childhood. Therefore, my recommendation as a professional psychologist can only be to undergo psychotherapy with a psychologist who works with childhood traumas. I see no other way to understand and transform us, rework this experience into a positive one